Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another seminar hosted by the Indic Toronto. Today, our topic is therapeutic living using yoga and Ayurveda. And the speaker is Sanmay Mukhopadhyay. He is an ex-CIO of a healthcare company in the USA. Yoga and healthcare are his passion, and disease management is his continuing focus of study. He has been teaching yoga for the last 15 years and has published research work in international forums. He currently lives in California, USA. Sanmay, I ask you to take over. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. I'm in California, 8 a.m. I think people from different parts are probably at different time zones. So thanks for making the time to join this. I want to give a little bit, start with something, but before that, I always start my talks with a little internalization, a minute or so. So wherever you are, if you can just sit quietly, close your eyes, and expand your rib cages. Inhale, expand it, expand it, expand it. As you go to your edge of your existence, your physical form, hold it. And then slowly, very slowly, let it go. Let the beautiful air come out into the outside world to serve the surrounding in terms of the trees, which will absorb your carbon dioxide and produce healthy oxygen for other beings. For a second, feel your singular consciousness with relevance to the infinite existence surrounding you. The expansion and contraction, what we do every few seconds, is the reflection of the whole universe. For a second, enjoy this very, very moment. One last inhale and exhale, deep, inhale, and let it go. With full gratitude and respect for each other and energy, we'll start our session today. So I have been a technologist. I still, my name is Sanmay Mukhopadhyay, by the way. I'm from the eastern side of India, Kolkata. And so I'm a Bengali, but I'm a universalist, a yogi first. Yogi, Ayurvedic, and then probably other identities. That's how I look at myself. And of course, my dharmic traditions are the underpinning of everything. I have been a technologist throughout my life, well, throughout my working life. I had a bachelor's in physics because I wanted to be a physicist, but then I found out it's probably too tough as a career. So anyway, I shifted from fundamental science to applicable, applications of science in engineering and computer science, and then management. All through, I had always practiced in bits and pieces yoga. I always used the Ayurveda in bits and pieces. For the last few years, I really delved into it, got myself few formal studies, and and the reason, big part of the reason was my own health issues, huge number of health issues, including some issues which are almost incurable, but manageable. So I'm going to talk about. I have autoimmune condition, which is a very rare autoimmune condition, which I'll delve into that later on. And I have a slide on autoimmunity because of that. But I live a healthy life, or I am aware enough to healthy life, and I'm learning every day. So I do practice yoga, and I teach yoga meaning physical form as well as breathing, meditation, etc. Counseling. I'm a yoga therapist. I'm a certified yoga therapist, CAIAYT. I've done my studies on that. But I'm also studying Ayurveda in the last couple of years. So I'm not an Ayurvedic doctor, but I know a little bit about Ayurveda, which I think augments and helps yoga in many ways, and it also helps me as a. So let me try to get to the next slide. Yeah. So what is health? There was an old definition from WHO in 1948, which was very unique at that time, because most of the modern rendition of health had been, and still is, very physically oriented. So if you have a good body, and if your heart is working, your liver is working, your nervous system is working, you have a decent mental state, you are healthy. And people started to go beyond that. And I'm talking about, this is more in the Western world. And they found out that this is just not, health is just not about absence of diseases, but it's much beyond that. So there's a social component in it. There's a huge mental component of it. And this was further elaborated by a gentleman called Dr. Dunn in 1961, who talked about this high-level wellness in a booklet, which actually touched upon things which the Indic traditions touched upon thousands of years back. He brought in spirituality, environmental conditions, on top of the intellectual conditions, on top of the emotional, the mental, emotional, and physical, and social well-being. So there are some added components in this, which I would think that should be added at some point. The issue, of course, is, whenever we go into the level of spirituality, there are a lot of questions and pushbacks. But that is where our traditions start from. It starts from the universal consciousness, the Paramatman, and it ends there. And all the value chain in between, from Atman to Jivatman to the physical existence, the mental, physical, breath layer, which I'm going to talk about the Panchakosha at some point. They're all renditions of this Paramatma. So yoga deals with, if you look at the classical texts of yoga, Yoga Vasishtha, Bhagavad Gita, and our Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, it talks about the mind in its very subtle state. Chitta vritti nirodha. And there are many interpretations of what is chitta, what is vritti, and what is nirodha. we're not going to go into that depth today, but Chitta Vritti Nirodha, in simple terms, means mastering of the mind. Then we have in Yoga Vasishtha, Manaha Prasamana Upaya Yoga. And the mind is under control and under, it's prasamana. It's in a beautiful state, like the water of a still lake. That is called yoga. And this Bhagavad Gita is Samatta Yoga Uchate, which is equanimity. So dealing with life's good and bad, ups and downs, the beautiful equanimous attitude is yoga. Easy said than done. Now, a parallel thing. So, in yoga, it talks about, there are 8 levels from yama, niyama to all the way to dhyana dharana. Patanjali's yoga, the 8 steps. However, its emphasis on from the, there are 5 koshas, and I'm going to show you the picture later on. There's the physical layer, the breath layer, the mental layer, the intellectual layer, and then the Anandamaya kosha, or infinity. For those who practice yoga, you know them as koshas, which means seats. So we have this Annamaya kosha, we have this. So that's kind of the core, which is the physical existence. Then the Pranamaya kosha, which is the breath layer. Then you have the Manomaya kosha. Then you have Vijnanamaya kosha. And then you have the Anandamaya kosha. Now, these are different layers of existence. And because of our misplaced identity, because we are so, there was a chemical composition that happened. And because of that, we cannot think of who we are, the core of us. And that's why these koshas help in understanding the different layers of our existence. And we are really part of this Anandamaya kosha. In fact, the kosha word in Taittiriya Upanishad, originally it was used as Atma, but then the different renditions of this came out and people talked about kosha because they are seats. They're actually seats. It's tangible. But originally they were all called Atmas because Annamaya kosha is part of the Anandamaya kosha. The Pranamaya kosha is part of the Anandamaya kosha, and so on. So everything starts from there. Everything is part of it. Everything is it. That realization, that understanding, deep understanding of that, is what we can call the true. If somebody lives with that understanding every nanosecond of his life, his or her, that I would say a therapeutic living. There's a difference. I'm making this distinction, by the way. This is my definition, and maybe there are others who have done it. I think a therapeutic living is that, and you could give any other name to it. For now, for this purpose, our presentation, I'm calling that awareness and touching upon that infinite existence on a whenever you can, and being aware that you are part of it and you are it, is living in full shwastha, in full therapeutic wellness, I would say. There's a subtle difference between wellness and health and therapeutic living. I'm making the distinction. I'm taking the leverage on that. Now, Ayurveda talks about health in also in a very holistic terms. Your dhatus, which is the physical form, your malas, your excretion, your agni, which is the fire of digestive fire, which is very important concept in Ayurveda, the oldest medical system, and your indriyas, your sensations, and your mind, manandriyas. All of this in a balanced state is called Shwasta. So what I'm trying to say is the concepts that are coming up today in a lot of different ways and with very articulate in articulate ways and with a lot of data has been there for thousands of years, and we are part, or at least some of us are part of the tradition. We should be proud of that. So let me, next slide. Okay. Now, from that larger picture, I think there's a noise somewhere, if that can be stopped. You can mute your mics, please. I really appreciate that. So why do we move away from health? So I here I would like to talk about a few other things which are trying to be mindful of the time. Yeah, so few things like, in our system, we had a system of 4 stages of life. From brahmacharya, garhastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. We also have these 4 aspects of life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And our systems that were designed were meant for this gradual transition. First, getting the base done, and gradual transition to the eventuality of life and passing life to the next life. But always the idea was that we are part of a larger existence. In mind, we lose health when we move away from our own self. And that creates a high level of what we call stress. Stress in yoga, I think this slide will be covered anyways. I think I lost that. Okay. So stress in yogi concept is a high speed of looping of thoughts. So we go on continuous into a looping state where you can't do anything else. You can't think anything else. It becomes very very stovepipe in your approach to life. You just cannot do anything else. So your efficiency decreases. Your what we call is a state of chanchala. You're not effective. You lose the larger picture, and so on. And physiologically, what happens is the sympathetic system takes over, and it has huge impact on the body and the mind. And the impacts are over the long run. So this is how it happens. There is stress, of course, there is stress. But this is like a brewing thing, and I'm going to talk about this Ayurvedic concept of the 6 stages of a disease. The stress accumulates. It's like pulling a string. You were first time, no problem. Second time, no problem. Pulling not a string, but a spring. You go on pulling it. At some point, the spring will lose its elasticity and become a longer and longer, and then eventually break. Think about your whole existence like that. There is this back and forth going on in your at the mental scale. Then that is being expanded and expanded, has huge impact on your breath, on your body, and then eventually manifests itself in diseases. Vasishtha, in his dialogue with Lord Rama, which has been encapsulated in his yoga, in the book scripture Yoga Vasishtha, that Lord Rama was asking, why do we have all these issues, diseases, and sorrow and pain, physical ailment? That's where he started, that the mind is the root cause of all diseases. So if you have that layer concept, the mind, the body, the breath, and the mind, the intellect, and Anandamaya Kosha, the Manamaya Kosha is the start of all the problems. So this becomes Chanchala. And there are different reasons. There's a lot of modern ideas. And in Bhagavad Gita, actually, second chapter talks about, how so one of the things is the desire, uncontrolled desire. You are always trying to get something, and that eventually destroys your common sense and your vichara, and eventually that leads to a lot of disaster. Now, I mentioned uncontrolled desire, and there is desire in everybody's mind, but that has to be channelized, thought through within a framework of this swastha, within the framework of this therapeutic living. And understanding yoga and Ayurveda will help us in doing that. We will not become perfect human beings in one day, but that journey will start with the understanding of yoga and Ayurveda. We'll fail almost every day, but we'll come up and understand, re-understand, and move forward. So coming back to Yoga Vasishtha, Vasishtha Muni, so that's where all the diseases start, all the chronic diseases. And there are diseases which are because of, for example, COVID-19 is a externally born disease, which is different, and that causes the mind perturbation of the mind later on. So that's not mind-borne. However, the mind-borne diseases are go like starting from the mind to the pranamaya kosha to the body, and wherever there is some weakness in the physical system, that's where it manifests. There's a huge amount of theory behind it. There's different types of samanya, sara, different types of classifications of this. I'm not going into that, but that is the whole idea. Again, our traditional thoughts, yogic thoughts, where it all starts from at a higher level and it percolates through, whether the definition of health, the definition of therapy, or living or disease, all starts from the root cause is somewhere else, not in the body itself, with few exceptions like the COVID-19, where it actually starts from outside. It's or an accident. But then if you have a controlled mind, you can deal with it much better. And in the last 1.5 years, when the COVID started, we also started, there are a few groups I'm attached to. We started doing very serious yoga, starting early morning, 5:30, we started doing meditation and pranayama. Pranayama is an absolute killer of all these diseases. Okay, and I'm going to delve on that a little bit later on. And in our groups, the groups I have been attached to, not a single person, and there are some person from India also, they join in there, got COVID infection. There was one person who got much later on, but she handled it very well. And the whole system of yoga and pranayama improves your parasympathetic tone, improves your immunity, improves the secretion of your good hormones, the serotonin and dopamine, and puts your Agni at a better state, your Ojas at a better state. These are Ayurvedic terms. I'm mingling with the modern terms. And that's where you are in a better state. One, to manage your chronic diseases, and two, to manage diseases which are being imparted from outside. And to do that, here, this picture, the mind has to be in a calmer state. There's a word called action in inaction. If you see the athletes, I mean, whether it's, my son's idol, Kobe Bryant here, or today, Neeraj Chopra, who got the gold, they're in full action. But their mind is absolutely still, focused, and not only focused at a point. So it's not only dharana, which is a focused state, it becomes a dhyanic state. So it becomes, okay, I know. This focused concentration becomes a part of effortless focus, to give a little definition to the word dhyana. And miracles start happening. You all know in our lives, we have seen that. At a state we focused, and then suddenly things happen. And that is a state of dhyana. And in yoga, there is a process called happiness analysis, where, we all touch the infinity, in some way or other, almost on a regular basis. But we don't realize that. In our sleep, we touch. In our Jagrat Avastha, we start and we touch. For example, there's a technique called happiness analysis, which I learned in my yogic, in my path to yoga. You take a little thing, like say you love rasgulla, and rasgulla is coming to my mind as a Bengali, or any laddu, whatever you have, or any sweet cake. You love it. You love it to the point of irritation and bad health. So a kind of positive change, a shift can happen. You take that a little bit, just a little bit, and then taste it. And when you taste it, you really taste it. You enjoy it. You be grateful that you are getting that. You expand your mind. You understand, wow, I'm so lucky that I'm having this beautiful thing. I'm enjoying it to its fullest extent. And just relax. If you can do that, next time when you're having a food which is not good for your health, just try this out method. I know some people are thinking, well, I'll eat the whole thing. Okay, but step by step, if you go there, you will find that you will touch that level of happiness. Okay, that's why Annamaya Kosha is part of this Anandamaya Kosha. That's exactly the reason, that even with Anna done properly, if you use your breath, if you use your mind, if you use your intellect to do a little as you are eating something, you really can touch upon the Anandamaya Kosha. Now, this is a temporary touch point. The rishis and the yogis, they are in that state all the time. That is the real therapeutic state. It's beyond therapeutic state. That really should not be equating that state with a therapeutic state. It's beyond. It's a nirguna, gunatita state. So it cannot be defined. But what I'm suggesting is that the tools are all around us. We have to be aware. We have to start practicing on ourselves and get the results. So again, stress is the root cause for all chronic diseases, not non-chronic diseases. Infectious diseases, accidents, pandemics are separate. But if you have control of your mind, you can handle those diseases, because disease itself causes a lot of stress. So I'm here. I'm going to just give my example of what happened in my. So I was in technology in executive positions, and there was a lot of stress. So I started developing allergies. Now, some of it is genetic. My mom had it, but the whole stress started getting expressed. I mentioned that the diseases start percolating, and then when it expresses, it finds the weakest link. So genes play a big role in that weakest link, and it expresses through those points. It's interesting. My mom had allergy issues. My dad had lung issues, and there are other issues, of course. So I did my epigenetics on the heart conditions and the diabetes and all of that. I don't have all of those. But this is something, these huge allergic conditions that actually transport into a very rare disease called IgG4 related disease, which doctors really don't know whether it's an autoimmune condition or not. It probably is. And it has implications on your lung. So again, the two genetic traits, the allergic condition for mom, the lung condition for dad, came to express itself in my system. And I started realizing that. And then that's when I started really delving into, because doctors were prescribing prednisone and other steroids, even larger doses of steroids. And nothing wrong with that method or approach. I'm not saying sometimes you need that when you are in a deep state of health suddenly has gone down. You may need a lot of strong interventions. Even Ayurveda has those. Ayurveda had surgery, as you know. The first surgeon was from Ayurveda, Sushrut. And modern science has focused on that, and they go deep into that. And if you look at the studies of genetic studies and other things, you would be amazed by the depth of that. And in fact, a lot of the discussions I have in my Ayurvedic and Yogic cycle, that we need to understand these things very well to even explain how we can fit, or how this fits into our model. And that's something, it's a work in progress right now. And I'm actually trying to do that through some programs. I'm talking to a few universities where we can talk about, actually I'm focusing on lung diseases using yoga and Ayurveda both. So that was when I started the journey. I talked with a lot of people, worked with few experts in the field of India, and here I started doing yoga on a regular basis, specifically breathing and breath control and other asanas, which are which would help in calming down your minds, and it took a while. Some of these diseases are deep rooted and deep seated. It is Sometimes they're not curable. Like, for example, the IgG4 is not curable in the sense that it may go down, but it is no guarantee it may go down. But the symptoms are all in control. I have developed little fibrosis, early signs of fibrosis in my lung. That is under check. I use modern medicine to check things out. My doctors know very on top of this, and I'm top of this. In fact, I went to a very well-known doctor, Mass General in Boston, near your time zone, and checked that out. And he told me to do a few things. So I'm integrating this. That's my approach, is integrating modern science with our yogic science, and that plays wonderfully. So the balance is the imbalance. So my example here is that the sympathetic tone of my body was so high, which is the mana, that mana prasamana upaya. Mana was in turbulence, creating a huge sympathetic tone, which created this whole chain reaction, and the value chain from my everything was wrong. And when the mind gets wrong, it also impacts the Vijnanamaya kosha in a way. And actual Charak has worked on this. Charak Samhita, it's called Prajnaparada. The intellect goes wrong. You start doing all the wrong things, not only for your health wise, but on your decision making over life. So that's where I started focusing on the parasympathetic through yoga, and then after that through Ayurvedic herbs, Ayurvedic processes, Ayurvedic lifestyle. That is more important. I'll talk a little bit about that. Let me check the time a little bit. Oh, it's almost 8:40. Okay, I need to move a little faster, looks like. So, as we said, I generally touched upon that. All these new, because of our health issues, or because of the new lifestyle, or a lot of these parameters have gone wrong. And there's a video on fork over knife. And there are a lot of similar other videos which talks over the last 100 years, the way the cardiac and the diabetes and all these other diseases have taken over. And it's a combination of few things. Okay, so this is where it's important to understand. Generally, when you have a sympathetic tone, it's a fight or fight syndrome, which increases your heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rate, muscle stiffness, all that stuff. But what it does is it does the opposite with the digestive systems, and the digestion becomes much worse. It's directly influenced by that, and I want to bring out, and please, I cannot go very deep on this. There is a gentleman called Peter Porges, designed the polyvagal theory, which is being tested out, and which is actually quite effective. We have this vagus nerve starting from the medulla oblongata all the way down to your gut level, and it has branches to the heart, to the lung, to the gut system. That's where the brain gut theories that have coming out. By the way, in Ayurveda, everything started from the gut. Those rishis knew that the gut was the main issue. Actually, a lot of people call gut as the second brain. They actually said gut is the main thing. So all the diseases start in the gut. In fact, Yoga Vasishtha talks about the same thing, where you have this disease or stress percolating, it starts affecting your digestive system. So tijirnata, kujirnata, so over-digestion, under-digestion, all these things start happening. So we are, so polyvagal theory, this is one of the things in pranayama, in different types of pranayama, and Om chanting. Om chanting increases nitric oxide generation. And different types of pranayama also improve the vagal tone. So I have patients, I have worked with a lot of people in yoga therapy who have gut issues, and they think they will do a lot of gut related yoga and that'll work. I said, yeah, that'll also work, but start with here at the here level, near the brain level. Start with here, and then that goes down. And that's the connecting thing is the vagal nerve. Vagal is vaga. Vega means wandering. It's part of the parasympathetic nervous system, and it is a long nerve, and it's huge impact on the in the body. It's interesting how a lot of the anatomical things are being discovered in the last few years. Like the vagal, the importance of vagal is only very recent. And then there's another thing called fascia, which is like a Superman type of coating of throughout the body, inside the body, which contains a lot of nervous tissues and other tissues, conduction of electrical signals. That is also quite recent, like 7-8 years back, they started to find out. Autoimmunity. So autoimmunity means attacking good cells. The body starts attacking good cells. Ayurveda has a very good explanation of that. The ama, or the ama is not really toxin, but ama is, a lot of people call the ama as a toxin. Ama is the undigested stuff in your body. When you eat something you don't digest, that's when things go wrong. That covers the good cells, and the body thinks it's a bad cell, therefore it starts killing its good cells. So it's kind of a layman type of answer to this, and I can go a little bit on that. Modern medicine going wrong, a lot of emphasis on is fair focus. So modern medicine is very reductionist. You focus on a disease and you don't care about, not you don't care about it, but you are not being able to put that holistic thing together. Ayurveda, yoga are holistically reductionist, which means that they look at the whole thing, and they had thousands of years to experiment. Modern science is very modern, right? That's why it's called modern. It's 150, 200 years. And these medicines are probably, last 50 years they're coming up. Start with the penicillin and then the other stuff that's coming up. So you have cohort studies, but cohort studies are not. The human system is very complex. A little cohort study here, maybe with a lot of data, statistically could be significant. That does not mean it is physically, mentally, spiritually significant. There are impacts. Even in Ayurveda, single herbs are generally not recommended because it could have some side impact. And they always say there are rasayana herbs, which are general purpose herbs like amlaki and guruchi and others. But people like to, if you talk to a serious Ayurvedic practitioner who is not interested in selling your product, he or she will tell you, if you have a disease, use a formulation. Rasayana, try to do with your herb, with your normal diet. So quickly going through, this is the 6 stages of disease: Sanchaya, Prakapa, Prasara, Sthana, Samsaya, and Vyakti, and Veda, last one is. So this is the very early stages of disease management. And I have some, it's called Satkriya Kala. I have some work on yoga on this, where I could, there are cases, and my paper is going to be published in a monograph end of the year. It's on how you can understand your something going wrong in your body through interoception. It's called interoception, and that's, to me, it's this predisposition stage, and then you go down the value chain, and ultimately it becomes a disease. So if all of us are interoceptive enough to understand that something is going wrong here and there, go to the doctor. I had a case where a lady who detected her breast cancer so early that that she got all the um, right treatment for that. So we talked about some of those samadhischa, samadhatu, malakriya, which means that everything is to be balanced in health. This is Ayurvedic. It's interesting what we in the modern day and age are struggling to go to has been there for years. So swastha and therapeutic swastha in a way is self-realization, which means touching with that Paramatman. And this is a favorite picture of mine. I knew both of this, especially the sitarist. He was like my cultural dad. So it's this unity, this harmony in diversity is what we need today. Modern science, yogic science, Ayurveda, all coming together. I think I'm gonna just go right into one thing. These are all the different levels of the koshas we talked about. So what would be an approach? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things here. So what would be a daily approach? So this is, again, in Ayurveda, we talk about dinacharya, which is how to lead every day, how to live in different seasons. What do you do in different seasons? What are the different rules? For example, lunch should be the heaviest meal, not your breakfast, and dinner should be very light. Don't eat a snack on, unless you have a disease condition like hypoglycemia, where you probably have to eat every 2 hours or so, or any other condition. Generally, a normal healthy person or a normal unhealthy person who doesn't have those diseases should be eating no less than 3 hours. So 9 o'clock morning, little breakfast, then 12 lunch, maybe 3 o'clock a little snack, maybe not. By 6 o'clock have your dinner. This is one little thing that you can start working on. Don't eat fruits, especially don't eat vegetables, uncooked vegetables or salads at night. Your Agni is the most important thing. You can have all the best food in your so-called healthy food, but if your digestive system is not working, you are not digesting. It's not what the food you eat, it's what food you digest. So keep that in mind. And don't do extremes. Eating extreme is bad. Fasting extreme is a lot of hype on intermittent fasting, which works to a certain extent, but it should not be done for a long period of time. Moderation. Drink warm water if you can. No iced water, please. Ghee, was out of fashion for a while because of the lipid impact. Again, if you are doing okay, you don't have a huge diabetic issue and other issue, obesity issues, you can have some ghee every day with rice and little rice and little pink salt, Himalayan pink salt, that really triggers your pitta and your Agni. This ghee is one thing which is kind of have a prabhava, which is kind of a little out of the ball, where it increases the Agni, even though it's kind of pacifying the other things. So mind over matter, we talked about in different ways on this. Avoid junk food. Eat properly, eat on time. In Ayurveda, time is more important than what you are eating. So timing is very, very important. Like, I don't know whether you guys have seen, but I have seen in my lifetime when I was in India, my parents or my grandparents were always about time. Eat 12 o'clock and eat my lunch, or whatever, dinner, 6 or 7 or whenever they would eat. Time was very, very important for them because the body runs in clocks, and the other thing is properties, and make the right choices. Get up early in the morning, do your stuff in the morning, brush, do your tongue scraping, drink your, hydrate yourself, take a shower, do your yoga, do your exercise, do your breathing and meditation, and then eat regularly, daily basis. Keep in mind that we are part of the whole cosmology. I think I went way ahead of my time. It's an amazing science. The yogic science and the Ayurvedic science is absolutely mind-boggling. I mean, I'm studying Ayurveda. I'm getting like, goodness, how can I do this at my age? It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do, and the magnanimity of thought, the holisticness of our rishis, the way they thought things. One of the principles is whatever you see outside is not outside; it happens inside. So the expansion and contraction. There are principles in Ayurveda guided by Siddhantas, they call it. The Vata, Pitta, Kapha, I really haven't talked about the basic thing. The Vata, Pitta, Kapha, the three bioenergies were there, also inside. We are in tune with nature. And so one of the things of therapeutic living is to be in tune with nature.
So, Sanmay ji, thank you for your presentation. How to get rid of rheumatoid arthritis? Sanmay ji, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, this is part of my CIYT and part of my yogic other trainings. And we do not give a general recommendation. We cannot give a specific recommendation over the phone like this without understanding and taking the case history. But I would say rheumatoid arthritis, say for generally speaking, it can be, but there are some yogic, there are some Ayurvedic processes also, herbs and all that. A big part, rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune condition. There are yogic, for example, if you have a rheumatoid arthritis in your palms or finger, one or two fingers, what can you do? You can mitigate that. It's not always possible, as I said, depending on the stage of the disease, to eliminate all the diseases, but you can do few sukshma vyamas and little bit of pranayamas, which can help you in mitigating this. Okay. Rheumatoid arthritis is one of the things in my practice. I see that they can be mitigated. In fact, I have a little bit of rheumatoid arthritis. I'm borderline. My CNAs and all that are borderline because of my autoimmune condition. For other things, I manage it through my yogic breathing, through my sukshma vyamas, through my different things, and that's why I teach. Actually, I take about 8 or 9 classes a week, morning and evening, and I do it. I tell them that I'm very selfish. I do it for myself, because that kind of helps me in being there. And I also have my own yogic practices. So yeah, colitis, and there are a whole bunch of things that can be done. But again, if you think it is a reductionist, so a lot of times people say, hey, I'm having this issue. What yoga can I do? Give me 1 or 2 yoga practices that will help. There are some conditions can be treated like that, not treated, but sometimes they're my friends, so I tell them what to do. But I tell them, look, this is not the way I want to do. I want to understand your history, where you are, how did it start, understand the whole case history before. In fact, my first session with any person who are seriously working with me, I spend about 2 hours looking at their whole prakriti, which is the Vata, Pitta, Kapha, initial constitution, then their Vikriti, and then I design a yogic, because I'm more specialized on the yoga side, and then in case of Ayurveda, if it's simple cases, I handle themselves. If it's too complicated, I bring an Ayurveda. I work with few Ayurvedic doctors in India. I bring them in, I take their suggestions, I do that way.
Is there a connection between anxiety and gastritis?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But there is, okay, so we talked about the vagal nerve. We talked about the mind, the brain-gut correlation. There's a huge amount of literature. Go to PubMed, you look at the polyvagal theory. Look it up, Google it up, and then if you want to read the books, yes, absolutely. There is no doubt. Just something I can give 200% that yes, anxiety. So there are, in mental condition, there are two things. One is anxiety, which is huge chanchala of the mind. The mind is going like this. You are from one leaf to the other, to the one branch to the other, and you're anxious. You don't know what to do. You're worrying all the time. And depression is on the other end. Depression is where you are slowed down. You cannot think, but you are not thinking. You are in a state of slumber. It's real tamasic. Chanchala is more on the rajasic side in certain ways. So we have the three gunas, sattva, raja, tamas. I'm hoping that most of you know a little bit about that. And therefore, yeah, so almost all the diseases have a gut-brain connection, okay? Chronic diseases and even non-chronic diseases, adhijya vyadhi and anadhijya vyadhi also, which is non-mind-borne diseases, they are also, they create mental issues. If you have, say, if you've seen COVID-19 patients, the mind becomes the real problem, because it is true. I mean, it will do anybody. You are thinking that you are dying, and so that's when the breathing breathing practices. In fact, in hospitals they have started doing certain breathing practices. Some have done like downward dog or Ardha Sasana. All those things have been practicing so that the mind comes down. Why breathing comes down the mind? Breathing, it goes into your nostrils. It has direct impact on your cranial nerves, and it direct impact on your vagal system, and it does have impact on your brain, your prefrontal cortex, your back of the brain, your different parts of the brain, and it goes to your heart. You saw the chart where it triggers all these sympathetic. The parasympathetic does it differently. It calms down your heart. It slows down your breathing. It creates the digestive juices that are needed. It improves your Agni in Ayurvedic terms, and it helps you fight your ama to the minimum, and therefore you are in a much better state.
Thank you, Sanmayji. There's a question of whether thyroid can be got rid of by using or by doing yoga.
Thyroid can be again. This is very specific question. In your case, I do not know, but there are thyroid protocols for yoga, and if you ever want to talk to me, I can talk to you on that. But will it work for you? How much will it work? That has to be. It's like you are seeing a doctor. Same thing. If you are going to a yoga therapist, or I don't even like the word yoga therapist, because it immediately puts people like us and like a physical therapist kind of. No, that's not our role. Our role is much more holistic. So yes, it can be. There are protocols for that. You can help. Whether it will be gone rid of or not, it's hard to say, because I do not know which state you are, what your health state is, what your immunity conditions are, how good you can fight diseases, things like that. But there are protocols. Almost all diseases have protocols, and yogic protocols. Almost all diseases have Ayurvedic protocols, and almost all disease conditions, like fatal disease conditions, like cancer of stage 4 or things like that, yoga can help in in a lot of different ways, in calming your mind down, in putting you in a better state of mind. Because in those states, the mind becomes a big issue. You are totally depressed. You are, I have treated a whole bunch of people in cancer last stages. And in fact, if you look at my original slide, I have a last site consultant, which means I work with a lot of people in their last stages and let them, go to the next stage of life in a smoother way. So that's a big thing, actually. That's not a small effort by yoga and Ayurveda. In fact, in Ayurveda, I hear there are fantastic treatments for cancer, but I don't know personally. In fact, some of those treatments apparently use metallic preparations, which are not allowed in the Western world. But people who are, who have been practicing actually Ayurvedic doctors, they say this cancer can be treated. So thyroid, I would ask you to start with yoga and then even talk to a good Ayurvedic doctor and see if you can get that out of the system. Definitely, it can be mitigated. Definitely, you can have a better control of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanmayji. Again, a question on a similar nature. Question is about, is it a treatment or cure for varicose veins, especially for homemaker ladies, like, housewives?
I have personally not treated, but I have seen people manage varicose veins. And I know Ayurveda has formulations and herbs and processes. Ayurveda has a process called Panchakarma, which probably most of you have heard of it. It's actually a process where you can actually get rid of your amas and improve your agni, and you balance your doshas and improve your dhatus. To go to a better health state. And my wife and I, my wife will be going through that process. Actually, this is a prolonged process. So I'm going to report back to you guys later on how that all worked. One of the things is, I do not talk very theoretically. I have theory, but I want to see whether it works before I say it works. So I have not worked with varicose veins, but I can, knowing the anatomical issues, I can say that it can be mitigated. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Again, a question of whether can gout flares be, can you get rid of them if they develop at a later stage of life?
Can what? I didn't hear.
Yeah, gout flares.
Oh yeah. Gout can be eliminated. I would say for gout, I would go to Ayurveda, talk to an Ayurvedic doctor. Can it be eliminated? I'm not sure 100% about that. Can it be mitigated? Again, one of the things one has to understand in yogic or yoga therapy is it is holistically reductionist. So if you are doing some breathing, that may impact your whole body that will impact your whole body in a lot of good ways. So but if you are trying to do yoga for gout, I'm not so sure about that. But if you are doing an overall yoga to help you work through the gout system, because I know about gout because I have gout myself, and I take Western medicine for that, allopurinol or Uloric. But I am taking some herbal stuff. It's kind of a bata. It's kind of bath, like in Bengali we call it bath. So it's kind of I think Raktavata, I believe that's what it is. And there are medications, there are herbs, not medications, herbs that can help in that process. So the short or long answer is yoga, I'm not 100% sure, but Ayurveda, I believe there are, but since I have not done it, I will not, I will ask you to do some more research or maybe talk to me further. I can do some research for you.
Since there are no more questions, so we can end the session here today. To thank you to all the audience for participating, and thank you Sanmayji for taking the time to come, speak and enlighten our audience with your own experiences and your knowledge. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you all for this audience. I'm sure I couldn't. I'm in the presentation mode still now. I couldn't see all the names and all that, but I'm hoping that it did some good to you. Just keep in mind, make life's processes simple. Eat well, eat on time. Do your take care of each body part without forgetting that we are a big part of this big infinite existence. Do some good work for human beings. Do a lot of charity. And if you have some conditions are not curable, but they're manageable. Keep that in mind. If you worry about it and get really stressed about it, that will not work. So take it as it is. Get the handle the bull by the horn, and use modern science, yoga, and Ayurveda, and any other thing, acupuncture or Chinese herbal system. Integration is the key, and use your mind to figure it out. We yoga therapists and Ayurvedic practitioners, we are there to just give you pointers so that you can be the doctor of your own body. That is the whole, you are the healer of your own system. Only you can be the healer, because the mind plays a big role in disease management. And I cannot handle your mind, you have to handle your mind. So with that, I would thanks everybody for coming to this talk, and I will give my email address. So if you have any questions, you can shoot it out to me, or the organizers know. You can talk to them. They can give it to you. I'm okay with sharing my email address to people, so no problems. And thank you very much. Thanks for giving me this opportunity.